All right, we have Dylan back on the Last Word Cheetah show. He joined us after we went through the Big Ten, did a little preview with us, told me the bets that I made that he disagreed with, the ones that he agreed with. Welcome back. This is at Thoughts of Dylan on Twitter. That's where you can find him. You ready to break down the ACC?
I'm ready.
Okay, so we're going to start with Miami. There was one bet that I liked on Monday. We went over three teams, Clemson, UNC, and Miami. And the one, I think, future price, the win total that stuck out the most was the Hurricanes at 9.5. Now, there's a lot of nines at plus money under. I liked it at 9.5, minus 140 or better. That is what we played on Monday. A lot of it, I think, outside of the fact that I think most people are saying, hey, it's UNC or Miami, Derek King, no problem, smooth recovery. The offense with Rhett Lashley in year 2 is going to be fantastic. It's possible. I still think there's a lot of uncertainty on Derek King being 100% of who he was before and being 100% period. And there's the uncertainty with the fact that he just runs the ball so frequently that maybe he's not even going to be under center every game. But defensively, they ranked 10th in the conference in opponent EPA through the air when they weren't able to generate a pass rush. They had 2 of the best pass rushers in the conference in the country that left. They lose them. And I worry is defensively, Matt Diaz has relied on this like turnover chain mantra, right, the last few years, is if they're not able to generate that pass rush and force those turnovers, they're not good defensively. And then if Derek King is not 100%, whatever it may be, my numbers think that they're more like an 8 or 9 win team more often than 10 or more, especially with their schedule. So give me your general thoughts on the Miami Hurricanes. If you side my way, lean one way or the other.
Yeah, I tend to agree with your sentiment. I do strongly agree with your point on the defensive line. I really don't think they're that good there. I mean, probably around average, maybe a little above average. And the secondary, I think, is good, but not great. And, the offense usually wins in college football. And I don't know if they really have a game breaker at wide receiver, like a guy who can win one-on-one. And the offensive line, probably average at best. That'd be an improvement, actually. So, yeah I'm not they're a good team, but definitely not great.
So NC State, I'm not going to get into much because I know we're in agreement here. We've spoken before. I think he started 4 games, but I loved Devin Leary under center, the NC State Wolfpack offense. He took them to another level. He's obviously going to be a go this year and hopefully healthy majority. I like 6.5s at plus money or the 6s that were juiced earlier when we did this futures bet on Tuesday. Break down the NC State setup. I know that you like them and are bullish this year.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty high on Leary. I think he's probably one of the better QBs in the conference, and they're really deep elsewhere. They have good skill and depth. NC State, I think they're actually a pretty underrated program when it comes to, kind of having dudes. I really like the defense, and they have a decent amount of playmakers, and you kind of throw out the stats last year with the backup QB. So, yeah, I'm pretty bullish on them.
Beautiful. So that's one I know you had said that you agreed with. This one, I think maybe you're more tempered. I like Florida State over 5.5. Now, what's interesting about this, and we've broken it down a lot this week on the show, but there are 8 teams that are within about 19 or 20 spots of my power ratings after the UNC Miami tier. I think NC State's a little bit ahead of everyone else, but even including them, there's really 7 in like the next 15 spots or something. Florida State's one of those teams, and it's interesting because now I have kind of this dynamic in the conference where I have a lot of value on certain win totals just because the market is a lot more dispersed than my personal projections, and I'm taking into account obviously the strength of schedule and who they're going to be facing. But I have Florida State as a 6-win team or better often enough to beat the VIG on a 5.5. I think weird year 0 COVID conference, no real practice or setup for Mike Norvell, who came over and was awesome at Memphis. And what's crazy is that their running game ranked 4th in EPA per rush last year. And you remember at Memphis, you always see these explosive runs and outside zone runs that Norvell puts together. It worked to Florida State too, and they didn't have a passing game. That ranked 121st in the country. And their defense was awful. So considering the talent they have, the recruiting, the scheme, having a real offseason, it's just a team that I don't see being 5 or fewer wins often enough. It's a smaller bet, I'll say that, relative to some of the others that I like. But it's just one, like, kind of on principle. The numbers say, the priors back it up. Seminoles over 5.5. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm actually a little lower on them in the market, but I'm not going to bet their win total just because I respect the talent and recruiting that they have. I mean, I think the key to their team, if you're kind of undecided, is what you think about them along the line of scrimmage. I know they had the good rushing stats last year, but I still don't think their line was that good overall, especially in pass protection. And I know they really put on like a full court press for the grad transfer O lineman from Marshall, and they whiffed there. So I think that kind of tells you what they think of that. And they did add a D lineman from Georgia, who's probably the best player on their team, and he was more of a like a rotational player for them. So that's a nice upgrade on a unit that struggled,
Yep.
but then again, if your best player is a rotational player from a better team, I don't know if
Fair.
that's the best thing in the world. Receivers are, I mean, they have some potential, but I don't think they're that good. And then Milton, the quarterback's kind of a wild card. We assume he'll start, but how healthy is he? So yeah, I respect their talent enough to not throw them in the trash, but I'm not bullish on them, if that makes sense.
Sure. No, that's part of what we talked about too, was the upside of Mackenzie Milton potentially. And if he doesn't end up playing, or it doesn't work out, or he's not as healthy as he looked a few years ago when he was at UCF, they have someone that can step in at least, that played plenty last year under center. But there is, I think, a ceiling that's a little higher for the Seminoles than their floor because of Milton and what he can bring to the table through the air, and at least be a team that ranks better than 121st out of 127 teams passing the football. Real quick, the next one, I know you're in disagreement. You can get 6.5s on Virginia. I have to go under. I'm pretty sure my projection was, it wasn't even 6. It was like a 5.7 or a 5.8 if I recall. Their schedule is really tough. Even outside of the conference, they have to play BYU, Notre Dame, and then an Illinois game that's not a certain win. And I know people were surprised, myself included, last year, first year, Brennan Armstrong taking over, and they were just better offensively after Perkins left than people expected. Defensively, I always like Bronco Mendenhall, his scheme. They kind of plug whoever in, and they can be an above-average team defensively. But versus the schedule, I don't see them winning 7. Plus, I know you disagree with me here, so tell me why you like Virginia.
Yeah, I didn't actually bet it myself, but I'm not too interested in the under because I think their offense is actually pretty good, even though it's unconventional. I think they can be pretty efficient, and their skill position players all right, and their line, I think their old line's pretty experienced and pretty good. And on defense, you kind of touched on Mendenhall. He's known for that. He's really good there, and their secondary really struggled last year. But I think I kind of trust him to get it right, and if that happens, I think they're as good as almost anybody in the conference besides Clemson, UNC, Miami, and they even beat North Carolina last year. And Mendenhall teams in general, they strike me as a team who can pull upsets, kind of punch above their weight. And I think they have like 4 or so coin flip games or toss-up games. And if you put Virginia in one of those spots, I like them more often than not. I think they win between, I'd say 6 and 8 games. I do think they make a bowl game, so that's why I'm not too interested in going under.
Fair enough. Let's hit on my final 3, and then we'll let you drop a few games of the year, I believe, that you said you bet. Anything week 1 that you potentially like. This next one for me is Louisville under 6.5. I believe we did this one on Wednesday, or maybe it was even yesterday. I think it was Wednesday, though. It's weird because everyone had Satterfield coming over 2 years ago. Louisville, overachieves. They win, I believe it was 8 games. Then they drop off last year. It was a weird year, and so I understand the sentiment that, hey, all right, let's throw that one out. Satterfield, year 3. You have Malik Cunningham. He's going to do his thing at quarterback. They had some issues last year, but they can make up for them. I just don't know, because they lost so many talented playmakers around Cunningham from last year's team to the NFL, that they can necessarily rely on him. And it's another team that, out of conference, they have to play Ole Miss, Kentucky. That's 2 SEC teams. You have to play UCF. And then you still have your actual conference schedule, which sees Clemson, Florida State, NC State, of the like. So for me, at 6.5, I just have to go under. I'm more like a 5.5 to 6 win projection for Louisville. So any thoughts there? Thoughts on Satterfield, Cunningham, the defense?
Yeah, of the win totals I didn't bet, Louisville under is probably my favorite, and I might get around to it here soon. But yeah, I just think their defense was pretty poor and was really susceptible to explosive plays. And I don't see that getting much better. And you lose the 2 receivers, Fitzpatrick and Atwell. I think that was a large part of their success, along with Hawkins. And with them gone, that's a question. I really don't know what they do well. Besides, the quarterback, he's a nice player, but I don't think he's the type that puts the team on his back to win games. So yeah, I think they're pretty much average to below average in every facet.
Yeah, and he turned it over at a rate that just isn't sustainable. And they probably had underlying metrics that said they should have scored more points, but Cunningham was trying to do too much with what he had. And the thing is, he had a lot more last year than he does this year. So we're in agreement there. Two more. These are both kind of on the smaller side, kind of like Florida State, but they're edges. And if you can get the Georgia Tech at 5, I think that's too high. I know it was a cool story that they go from flexbone option. Sims takes over freshman, and the Georgia Tech team was actually pretty good last year. But as a whole, I still don't project them out to being a 500 or better team enough. I like the under 5, and I have them projected right at 4. So it's actually one that I think I didn't mean to say smaller. Georgia Tech's a full play. Syracuse is a smaller one. I'll just let you hit on both of these because they are the bottom of the barrel in the ACC. Syracuse, if you can get the 3, I know there's some 3.5s. I project them more like 3.8, 3.9 wins. So at the 3, I do like the upside of potentially Dino Babers going to Garrett Schrader, the transfer from Mississippi State, and the offense just taking a leap because it was so bad a year ago. And, they can hang enough with this off-season schedule. I think their first 4 games are winnable. So the over 3, they're going to be pick or small favorite in most of those. I just had to go take a shot there if you can get the 3. So anyway, thoughts on the bottom of the ACC with Georgia Tech and Syracuse?
Yeah, I think Sims is a good quarterback when you put him in a position to succeed and he has things around him, but I'm not sure that's the case outside of a good running back. And the defense was okay, but nothing to write home about. And yeah, like you said, their schedule's really tough. I think they can. They have like a little stretch before they play Georgia, and they play someone good before Georgia. I don't remember.
Notre Dame.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So they have a little stretch there where they basically need a peak. I'm not sure they will. I'm not a big fan of them, but I didn't bet it myself just because I feel like there's a lot of variance in the ACC, like how you mentioned earlier. And even was it last year, 2 years ago? They beat Miami. Even something like that could happen. It wouldn't shock me,
Sure.
just because they have a tendency to play down. And basically all these teams besides Clemson have a potential to do that, in my opinion. And then Syracuse, kind of funny. I actually leaned under, and I almost made the bet myself, but I didn't, just because it's feasible. They start out 2-1, and then you steal an ACC game, and the dome's kind of a tough place to play, or it can be when they crank it up to 80 degrees, like my car is right now. So they could steal one, and their offensive line was pretty putrid. And I've read articles and they're talking it's going to be improved, but I wouldn't hold them to that. And their secondary was actually decent last year, and they lose people from that. So if that takes a step back, they could be pretty bad. I saw yesterday you touched on Schrader, and I think maybe if they implement him and do maybe more of a rushing attack type deal, maybe they can kind of grind out some games. But I'm not hopeful on that. That's more of a shot in the dark. So yeah, I think it's a fair number.
So yeah, the Schrader. Who was the quarterback before DeVito? Do you remember off the top of your head?
He
was gritty. He was kind of like the Schrader style where they ran with him more often.
Oh, Dungy.
Thank you, Dungy.
College football Twitter legend Eric Dungy. Yeah.
Yes, Dungy. Guy. That's who I'm hoping Schrader can be, because DeVito certainly is not.
Pretty
Go ahead.
Similar.
You're good.
Yeah. They're both not afraid to take a hit. Are you here?
Yeah, you're good. I was just making sure you were able to get that last word out. So, one quick thing, and then we'll let you hit on a few of your last points within the ACC conference. I just am looking at Georgia Tech's schedule, and I will say I talked myself into the Syracuse at 3 while we were doing the show yesterday. That's why I said it was on the smaller side. I was going to just pass because I just think it could be a total mess. The fact their offensive line just couldn't generate any push to run the football for an entire year is concerning for sure. And like you said, they say that they're improved, but you can't really bank on it. So you have to be able to get the 3, and it's a smaller play. But Georgia Tech, I love quite a bit. Look at their schedule. Even right off, Northern Illinois isn't a sure win in week 1, and then they have an FCS opponent. But even if they're 2-0 there, you go Clemson and UNC, who everyone mostly agrees are the 2 best teams in the conference. Pitt. Then you have Duke, Virginia. I guess those are more their winnable stretch. But then you talked about that stretch. They end with Georgia and Notre Dame. But even before that, it's Boston College, who a lot of people are high on, Miami, and Virginia Tech. I don't know how this team wins half their games. I just don't see it. So I love the Yellow Jackets under quite a bit.
It's funny. If you're Duke and Georgia Tech, I think that game's pretty much your Super Bowl. That's your chance to get a conference win. You know what I'm saying?
Circle it October 9th. Put it on the calendar. All right, so give us a couple bets that you made over the summer. I know you mentioned some games of the year and anything else.
Yeah, the only game of the year I played that's still live, or the number's still good. I did play Notre Dame. I think they can impose their will on Florida State. I think their defense is good enough to shut them down. They can at least run the ball. And I'm actually a little higher on Jack Cohn than most people are. I'm not saying he's going to be a first-round pick, but I think he's a above-average college QB. So, yeah, as far as the ACC goes, Notre Dame week 1 is probably my favorite.
Okay, what number did you bet at that?
I bet 9.5. I think it's good to 10.
Okay, cool. So 9.5 for 10 on the Notre Dame side. Any season win totals? I think you mentioned just kind of agreeing with the Louisville sentiments, NC State, but there's nothing you actually fired there or any like conference. It's weird because Clemson, I know we didn't talk about Clemson. It's just because they just destroy every single year, but there's nothing as far as a division or conference future worthwhile.
Right, I agree on that. Yeah, but nothing in the ACC that I have that you didn't touch on, honestly. I think the most interesting team is Wake Forest. I think they could go either way. That's a team I would read up on more if anybody wants to do their homework. I think they're interesting. They could go either way. But yeah, nothing I bet.
Okay, that's good. I was on market. I love Hartman. We talked about it. It's like they can score 40 to 50 if they need to, but we referenced that UNC game from last year. I think the final was 59-53. UNC scored like 21 straight in the fourth, 28 total in the fourth to win. And it's just tough to trust when the defense just can't be counted on like that, even if Hartman's going nuts and Wake's scoring. But perfect. We appreciate you jumping on. I know it was short notice, Dylan. Tell people real quick where they can find you on Twitter, and then we'll let you go.
You can find me at Thoughts of Dylan. Not much to say there, just mostly my thoughts on this type of stuff. But yeah, give it a follow if you want.
Perfect. We appreciate it, man. Take it easy.